My daughter opened 2 credit cards in my name, ran up $14,600 in debt, and when I confronted her about it, she told me I was the problem. I keep receipts. 2 cards, one with an $8,400 balance, the other $6,200, both in collections, both destroying my credit score, and every single charge traced right back to my daughter's home computer. The bank even had footage of my son-in-law Derek walking in with my driver's license to verify the account. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely scroll through that credit report. You know that feeling when your stomach drops and it just keeps dropping? When you realize the people you gave everything to have been stealing from you this whole time? They thought I'd stay quiet. They thought I'd never report my own daughter to the police. They didn't know I'd already hired a lawyer and installed a security camera on my front porch. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back about 8 months back to when I still believed being a good mother meant being available. My name is Margaret Crawford. I'm 71 years old, widow, retired. And for the past 7 years, I thought my purpose in life was taking care of my daughter Jessica and my granddaughter Emma. My husband Robert passed 5 years ago. 32 years of marriage to a practical man, a veteran who believed in fairness and keeping your word. After he died, Jessica and Emma became my whole world. I threw myself into being the best grandmother, the most helpful mother, the one person they could always count on. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I drove across town to babysit Emma, 20-plus hours a week. No questions asked, no payment expected. I helped with grocery shopping. I covered unexpected expenses. I was there for every scraped knee, every school pickup, every time Jessica needed a break. I thought that's what family does. Here's where I should have started paying attention. About 3 years into this routine, Jessica came home 3 hours late from what she called a crucial appointment. She walked through the door carrying shopping bags from stores I couldn't afford to step foot in. Expensive stuff, designer labels, no explanation, no apology. Just a distracted kiss on Emma's forehead and a wave toward the door that meant I should leave. I told myself she was stressed. I told myself everyone needs a little retail therapy sometimes. I made excuses for her. That's what I did. That's what I was good at. A few weeks later, Derek called me, my son-in-law. He's a warehouse shift manager at some distribution center. Not exactly rolling in money, you know? But he calls me asking for $5,000 for emergency home repairs. I asked him for an estimate from the contractor. Simple question, right? He got defensive. Started talking about how family should trust family, how I was treating him like a stranger, made me feel guilty for asking. So I transferred the money. No documentation. No proof any contractor ever set foot in their house. Big mistake. A couple months later, I showed up unannounced on a Saturday to drop off some clothes I'd bought for Emma. And there they were, loading my granddaughter into a brand new SUV. Black, gleaming. Had to be $40,000 at least. I asked about it. Jessica smiled and said Derek got a promotion. He's a warehouse shift manager. What kind of promotion gets you a $40,000 vehicle? I didn't ask. I was afraid of the answer. So I smiled and waved goodbye and drove home with that sick feeling in my stomach that I kept pushing down, down, down. Would you have asked? Be honest. Because I didn't, and I should have. Comment below. That April, I spent an entire Saturday helping Jessica clean out her garage. 3 hours in that heat. Sorting through boxes of junk they'd accumulated, hauling trash bags to the curb, scrubbing shelves until my back screamed and my knees felt like they were grinding glass. I was covered in dust and sweat by the time Jessica finally emerged from the house. She'd been inside the whole time, scrolling on her phone, while I worked myself raw in her garage. She walked over, barely glanced at what I'd done, and immediately started criticizing. Why did you put the paint cans there? Derek needed those cables you threw away. You don't think? Mom, you just do whatever you want without asking. I stood there in my dirty clothes, my muscles aching, and something cracked inside my chest. I tried to explain that the cables were rusted through, that I'd organized everything by category, that I'd been working for 3 hours in the heat while she cut me off. Stop giving me advice. I'm not a little girl anymore. Live your own life. Live your own life. 3 words, said like she was swatting away a fly. I looked past her and saw Emma's small face pressed against the window, watching her grandmother get dismissed like the help. I set down the trash bag. I didn't say a word. I walked to my car, got in, and drove home in complete silence. That night, I made a decision. If Jessica didn't want my help, she wouldn't get it. The first week felt like withdrawal. I caught myself reaching for my phone dozens of times, ready to text Jessica about some recipe I'd found or ask how Emma was doing in school. Every time, I stopped myself. She told me to live my own life. Fine. That's exactly what I'd do. Day 8. I sat down at my kitchen table with my bank statements. I pulled out a calculator and I started adding up every single dollar I'd given Jessica and Derek over the past 7 years. My hands were shaking before I was halfway through. $15,000 for their house down payment, $8,000 when they crashed their old SUV, $12,000 for medical bills when Derek's insurance didn't cover something, $6,000 for a new furnace, $5,000 for Derek's sister's wedding, plus all those emergencies, all those small loans that were never paid back. The total sat there on the calculator, display like a punch to the chest, $63,000. I stared at that number until my vision blurred. $63,000 over 7 years. More than most people make in a year. And not a single dollar ever paid back. Not even a genuine thank you. But I wasn't done. I picked up the calculator again. 20 hours a week. 52 weeks a year. 7 years, 7,000 hours. I had spent 7,000 hours babysitting my granddaughter for free. If I'd been paid minimum wage, just minimum wage, that would be another $50,000. Combined total, over $100,000 in money and labor. I sat there feeling like the world's biggest fool. How had I not seen it? How had I let it get this bad? Robert would have never let this happen. Robert would have seen through them years ago. I thought about my husband. That practical, fair man who kept his word and expected others to do the same. What would he say if he could see what I'd become? An ATM with no withdrawal limit, an unpaid servant. Something shifted in me that night. The devastation started transforming into something harder, something colder. Not anger exactly, more like clarity. I wasn't going to confront them with accusations. That would just give them a chance to lie and manipulate. Instead, I'd protect myself, establish boundaries, stop the bleeding. Day 16, my phone rang. Jessica. Mom, it's Thursday. You're supposed to be here. Where are you? I kept my voice calm. I'm respecting your wishes. You told me to live my own life. Silence on the other end. Then her voice went sharp. So you're punishing me now? Real mature, Mom. Emma's been asking about you. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm taking your advice. This is ridiculous. You're acting like a child. I almost laughed. Almost. I love you, Jessica. I'm just not available anymore. I hung up before she could respond. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was in control. That feeling lasted about a week. Day 23, my phone lit up with Derek's number. I let it go to voicemail. His message was casual, almost friendly. Hey, Margaret. Listen, the car's making this weird noise, and the mechanic says it's going to be about $3,000 to fix. I know things have been a little tense, but we're family, right? Jessica's just been stressed. You know how she gets. Anyway, give me a call when you can. Emma really misses her grandma. $3,000. Just like that. Like I was a bank he could access whenever he wanted. I didn't call back. Day 28, Derek called again. This time, his voicemail was shorter, more irritated. Margaret, we really need that money. This is an emergency. Call me back. I still didn't respond. And that's when the calls started coming from Jessica again. But this time, they weren't demanding. They were sweet, apologetic even. Mom, I'm sorry about what I said. I was just overwhelmed. You know, I appreciate everything you do. Can we have lunch? Talk things through? I might have fallen for it. The old me would have fallen for it in a heartbeat, but I was doing something I'd never done before. I was thinking. I opened a new savings account with extra security, password protection. Any withdrawal over $100 required in-person verification with ID. I wasn't taking any chances. Then I made an appointment with an elder law attorney. Her name was Patricia Hendricks. Her office was downtown, squeezed between a tax prep place and a chiropractor. Not fancy, but she had kind eyes and a yellow legal pad covered in notes from people like me. I told her everything. The money, the labor, the dismissal, the boundary I was trying to set. She listened without interrupting, made notes, nodded in the right places. When I finished, she leaned forward with this expression I couldn't quite read. Margaret, I need to ask you something. It might seem unrelated, but trust me. Okay, have you ever checked your credit report? My stomach dropped through the floor. No. Why would I need to? Patricia's pen tapped against her notepad. Many families who engage in financial exploitation also engage in identity theft. It's not always the case, but given what you've told me about the money they've taken, the lifestyle they're living, that SUV they couldn't possibly afford, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. That night, I went online, hands shaking, heart pounding. I pulled my credit report from all 3 bureaus, and there they were. 2 credit cards I never opened, never applied for, never even knew existed. One had a balance of $8,400. The other was $6,200. Both were in collections. Both had been opened 3 years ago, right around the time I'd given Jessica my Social Security number to help add Emma to my health insurance. My own daughter had stolen my identity. My blood went cold. Then it went hot, then cold again. I sat in my kitchen at 11 o'clock at night, staring at the evidence on my screen, and I understood something I'd been refusing to see for 7 years. This wasn't about stress. This wasn't about a difficult patch. This wasn't a family that just needed a little help. I'd been played, robbed, exploited by my own child. And she was still out there, still calling, still leaving sweet voicemails, still asking for money, still thinking I was too stupid to figure it out. She was wrong. I printed those credit reports. I put them in a folder next to my bank statements. And I made another appointment with Patricia Hendricks. This time, I wasn't asking for advice on boundaries. I was asking about criminal charges. My daughter thought she could rob me blind and get away with it because I loved her, because I'd never say no, because grandmothers don't send their daughters to prison. She had no idea who she was dealing with anymore. $14,600. That's how much my daughter stole from me using my own name. And that was just the beginning. I sat across from Patricia Hendricks the next morning with a folder thick enough to stop a door. Bank statements, credit reports, screenshots, 7 years of being used, all laid out in black and white. Patricia flipped through everything, didn't say a word for a good 5 minutes. Just kept reading, making notes on that yellow legal pad of hers. Every few pages, she'd shake her head. Once, she actually whistled. When she finally looked up, her expression was different. Less sympathy, more steel. Margaret, I want to be very clear about what we're looking at here. Okay, this isn't just family drama. This isn't a civil matter where you sue them for the money they borrowed. She tapped the credit reports. This is identity theft, wire fraud. Opening accounts in someone else's name using their Social Security number is a federal crime. We're talking multiple felonies. Multiple felonies. Those words just hung there in the air between us. What does that mean? Practically, it means if you want to pursue this, we're not talking about small claims court. We're talking about police, detectives, possibly FBI involvement if it crosses state lines, prosecution, prison time. For my own daughter. I should have felt something. Hesitation, guilt, second thoughts. But you know what I actually felt? Relief. Like someone had finally confirmed what I'd been too scared to admit to myself. What do I need to do? Patricia leaned back. First, I need to ask you something. Are you sure about this? Because once you file a police report, there's no taking it back. The prosecutor decides whether to pursue charges, not you. You might not have control over what happens next. I thought about Jessica's face when she told me to live my own life. I thought about Derek's smirk when he asked for money he never intended to pay back. I thought about that new SUV sitting in their driveway while they claimed they couldn't afford car repairs. I'm sure. She never blinked. Then, let's get started. That afternoon, I walked into the Cleveland Police Department's non-emergency entrance and filed a formal complaint. The officer who took my report was a woman named Jennifer Chen. Young, serious, professional. She listened to my whole story without interrupting, took notes, asked clarifying questions. When I handed over the folder with all my evidence, she actually paused and looked at me. You documented all of this yourself? I'm 71, Officer Chen. I'm not senile. I know how to keep records. Something shifted in her expression. Less pity, more respect. Mrs. Crawford, I see a lot of elder financial abuse cases. Most of them, the victim is too embarrassed or too scared to press charges, especially when it's family. She closed the folder. You're doing the right thing. This is going to be assigned to a detective. Someone will be in touch within the next week or two. I walked out of that police station feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Not happy exactly, but whole. Like I was finally standing up instead of bending over. The call came 9 days later. Detective Michael Torres. He'd been assigned my case and wanted to meet in person to discuss what they'd found. Found. That word stuck with me. I went down to the station the next morning. Detective Torres was older than Officer Chen, maybe late 40s, with the kind of tired eyes you get from seeing too much. He had my folder on his desk, plus a new one I didn't recognize. Mrs. Crawford, thank you for coming in. We've completed our initial investigation, and I think you need to see what we found. He opened the new folder and slid a printout across the desk. The credit card applications were submitted online 3 years ago. We were able to trace the IP address. He pointed at a highlighted section. This is your daughter's home address. The applications were submitted from a computer inside her house. I stared at the address. The house I'd helped pay for. The garage I'd cleaned while Jessica scrolled on her phone. But that's not all. He slid another document across. This one was a grainy photograph, the kind you get from security cameras. A man at a bank counter, mid-30s, brown hair. Derek. This was taken at a First Bank branch 14 months ago. Your son-in-law walked in with what appears to be your driver's license and requested a credit increase on one of the fraudulent accounts. The bank has the footage. Their security team flagged it when we reached out. I picked up the photograph. My hands were steady. My voice wasn't. That's my driver's license. In his hand. We believe so. Yes. The bank is cooperating fully. Combined with the IP evidence, we have a very strong case. Strong case. Against my daughter. Against my son-in-law. What happens now? With your permission, we'd like to proceed with the investigation. That means interviewing your daughter and her husband. They'll know you filed a report. They'll know we're looking at them. Do it. He nodded slowly. Mrs. Crawford, I have to ask. Are you prepared for what comes next? These cases can get ugly. People don't react well when they're cornered. I thought about 7 years of being used. $63,000, 7,000 hours, 14,000 in fraudulent debt, a driver's license in Derek's sweaty hand. Detective Torres. They've been ugly to me for 7 years. I just didn't have the sense to notice. 2 days later, my phone rang at 6:47 p.m. Jessica's number. I answered. Mom! She was screaming. Actually screaming. The police were just here. They're saying you accused us of fraud. Are you out of your mind? I kept my voice calm, steady, everything she wasn't. If you had nothing to do with it, you have nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about? They came to my house, in front of the neighbors. Derek almost got arrested. Almost. Interesting word choice. Jessica, I'm not going to discuss this with you. Not going to discuss it? You're trying to send your own daughter to prison and you won't discuss it? I'm trying to recover the $14,000 someone stole from me using my social security number. If you didn't do it, the investigation will prove that. Silence. Just her breathing, heavy and ragged. Then her voice dropped. Cold. Nothing like my daughter anymore. You're going to regret this. You know that, right? You think you're so smart with your little police report, but you don't have any proof. The police seem to think otherwise. Whatever. You'll see. She hung up. The next call came 20 minutes later. Derek. His voice was different. Not angry. Worse. Controlled. The kind of calm that makes your skin crawl. Margaret, we need to talk. I don't think we do. Listen to me carefully. Family doesn't call the police on family. That's not how this works. Whatever you think happened, we can work it out ourselves. No lawyers, no cops, just family. Family doesn't commit fraud against family, Derek. I didn't commit. He stopped himself, took a breath. Look, I don't know what you think you found, but you're wrong. You're confused. You're 71 years old. Maybe your memory isn't what it used to be. There it was. The strategy. Make me look senile. My memory is fine. So is the bank security footage. Dead silence. What footage? The footage of you using my driver's license to increase the credit limit? The bank has it. So do the police. More silence. I could almost hear him calculating. You can't prove anything. His voice had changed again. Tighter. Less controlled. We'll see. Margaret, don't contact me again, Derek. Not unless it's through my attorney. I hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from guilt, not from doubt, from adrenaline. From the strange, unfamiliar feeling of fighting back after years of being used. I thought about what Detective Torres said. These cases can get ugly. People don't react well when they're cornered. Derek was cornered. Jessica was cornered. And cornered animals are dangerous. The next morning, I drove to Home Depot. Bought a chain lock for my front door, the heavy-duty kind. I also ordered a security camera online, one of those Ring doorbells that records everything and sends alerts to your phone. Patricia thought I was being paranoid when I told her. Then she thought about it for a minute and said maybe I wasn't. Keep records of any contact, she said. If they threaten you, document it. If they show up at your house uninvited, document it. Everything could be evidence. Everything could be evidence. Those words stayed with me. A week later, Detective Torres called again. The prosecutor's office had reviewed the case. They were moving forward with charges. What kind of charges? Identity theft, credit card fraud, bank fraud. Your son-in-law is also looking at a charge for using a false identification document. That's the driver's license. I sat down hard on my kitchen chair. When does this happen? They'll be formally notified within the next few days. There may be arrests, depending on how they handle the notification. Mrs. Crawford, I want to prepare you. Things might escalate before they get better. They might escalate. I looked at my new chain lock. My doorbell camera was arriving tomorrow. My savings were in a new account they couldn't touch. Patricia had my power of attorney paperwork updated and locked in her office safe. I'm ready. One more thing. The prosecutor, Miss Chen, yes, she's related to Officer Chen. They're sisters. She's very good at these cases. She wants to meet with you next week to prepare for the preliminary hearing. 2 sisters. One took my report. The other would prosecute my daughter. Something about that felt right. I spent the next few days jumping every time my phone buzzed, checking the new doorbell camera every hour, making sure all my windows were locked at night. But the call I was dreading didn't come from Jessica or Derek. It came from Patricia. "Margaret, I just got off the phone with the prosecutor's office. There's something you need to know." "What?" "The investigation turned up additional evidence during their review. Something you didn't know about." My stomach dropped. "What kind of evidence?" "There's a third account." "What?" "A third credit card. Opened 9 months ago. Same pattern, your social security number, your information, different bank. The balance is $12,400. They were still making payments on it, which is why it didn't show up in collections on your credit report. $12,400 on top of the $14,600, $27,000 in fraudulent debt. "Margaret, are you still there?" I was still there. But I wasn't the same person I'd been 30 seconds ago. "They're still doing it," I said slowly. "Even after I stopped giving them money. Even after I established boundaries. They just opened another card." "It appears so, yes." I thought about Derek's voice on the phone. "You can't prove anything." I thought about Jessica screaming that she was innocent. I thought about both of them lying straight to my face while they were actively stealing from me. 9 months ago. That was 3 months before the garage. Before Live Your Own Life. While I was still babysitting Emma every week, they were opening new credit cards in my name. The rage I felt wasn't hot anymore. It was cold, clean, crystal clear. What does this change? It changes the prosecutor's approach. This isn't a one-time crime anymore. This is an ongoing pattern of fraud. That usually means harsher charges, longer sentences if convicted. Good. "Patricia, I want to meet with Miss Chen as soon as possible. I'll set it up for Monday." I hung up and stared at my kitchen wall. The same wall I'd stared at when I calculated $63,000. The same wall I'd stared at when I discovered the first 2 credit cards. $27,000. Plus the $63,000 in gifts I'd given them over 7 years. Plus 7,000 hours of free labor. They'd taken everything I had, and they'd still wanted more. You know what I kept thinking about? That new SUV in their driveway. That $40,000 vehicle they couldn't possibly afford. Now I knew where the money came from. My credit, my name, my life, and they were still doing it, right up until the police knocked on their door. Monday morning, I would meet with the prosecutor. I would tell her everything. I would hand over every document, every screenshot, every piece of evidence I'd collected, and then I would watch my daughter and her husband face the consequences of their choices. Some people might say, that's cold. Some people might say a mother should protect her child no matter what. But here's the thing. I did protect her. For 7 years, I protected her. I gave her money when she needed it. I gave her time when she demanded it. I gave her everything I had, and she repaid me by stealing my identity and blaming me when she got caught. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's being used. And I was done being used. The camera was installed. The doors were locked. The evidence was collected. The prosecutor was ready. But I had a feeling, that gut feeling you get when you know trouble's coming, that Jessica and Derek weren't done yet. Cornered animals fight back. And they were about to show me just how ugly this could get. Thursday night, 7:42 p.m. My doorbell camera sent an alert to my phone. Derek's truck was in my driveway. You know that feeling when your whole body goes cold but your hands start sweating? That's what happened. I was standing in my kitchen making tea, and suddenly every nerve in my body was screaming. I looked at the camera feed. Derek and Jessica were walking up my front steps. Together, Jessica was carrying something looked like a folder. Derek had his jaw set in, that way he gets when he's about to try to intimidate someone. They rang the bell. I didn't answer, just watched them on my phone screen, standing on my porch, looking at each other. Derek rang again, held the button down for 3 seconds. "Margaret!" His voice was muffled through the door. "We know you're home. Your car's in the garage. Open up." I walked to the door, put my hand on the chain lock, made sure it was secure. Then I opened the door about 4 inches, just enough to see their faces through the gap. "What do you want?" Jessica tried to push past the chain. It held. Mom, let us in. We need to talk about this like adults. We can talk through the door. Derek's face went red. This is ridiculous. You're acting like we're criminals. You are criminals, Derek. That's what identity theft makes you. He actually flinched. Good. Look, he said, lowering his voice like he was trying to sound reasonable. I know things got heated on the phone, but we're family. We can work this out. Just let us in and we'll explain everything. Explain what? How you opened 3 credit cards in my name? How you walked into a bank with my driver's license? How you've been stealing from me for 3 years while I was babysitting your daughter for free? Jessica's eyes went wide. 3 credit cards? Mom, that's insane. She stopped, realized what she just said. You only what, Jessica? You only opened 2? Silence. Derek's hand tightened on the doorframe. That's not what she meant, he said quickly. She's confused. We're all confused. That's why we need to sit down and... I'm not confused, and I'm not letting you in my house. Derek's mask started slipping. I could see it in his eyes, that controlled calm turning into something darker. Margaret, you don't want to do this. You really don't. Is that a threat? It's a fact. You think the police are going to believe you over us? You're 71 years old. You probably can't even remember what you had for breakfast. Any lawyer worth a damn is going to destroy you on the stand. There it was. The real Derek. The one who'd been hiding behind fake smiles and casual requests for money. My memory is excellent. So are my records. So is the bank's security footage. His jaw clenched. What footage? The footage of you using my driver's license to increase the credit limit. The bank gave it to the police. They have your face, Derek, clear as day. Something shifted in his expression. Fear, maybe? Or calculation. Hard to tell with him. That wasn't. He took a breath. Look, even if there was some misunderstanding about the credit cards, we can fix this. I'll pay them off. Every penny. Just drop the police report and we'll make it right. You'll pay off $27,000? How? You couldn't even afford the $3,000 car repair you asked me for last month. Jessica grabbed Derek's arm. Derek, let me handle this. She stepped closer to the door. Her eyes were wet now, tears forming. I'd seen this performance before. Mom, please. I know I said some things that hurt you. The whole live your own life thing. I didn't mean it like that. I was stressed. Derek and I have been struggling, and I took it out on you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The apology I'd waited months to hear, and it meant nothing. You're sorry you got caught, Jessica. That's different. That's not fair. You know what's not fair? 7 years of giving you everything I had, $63,000, 7,000 hours, and you repaid me by stealing my identity. We were going to pay it back. We just needed time. Time to do what? Open more cards? Keep charging things you couldn't afford? That SUV in your driveway, did you pay for that with my credit too? Neither of them said anything. That was answer enough. Derek stepped forward again. His voice dropped low. Listen to me carefully, Margaret. If you pursue these charges, you're not just hurting us. You're hurting Emma. Do you understand that? If we go to prison, and we won't, but if we did, Emma goes into foster care. Is that what you want? Your granddaughter in the system? Using a 7-year-old as a shield. The audacity. Then you should have thought about that before you stole from me. We didn't steal from Derek caught himself. Breathed. We borrowed. There's a difference. Not when you forge someone's signature and open accounts in their name without permission. That's called fraud. Multiple felonies, according to my attorney. Jessica's tears were flowing now. Real or fake, I couldn't tell anymore. Mom, please, I'm begging you. Think about Emma. She loves you so much. She asks about you every day. Where's Grandma? Why doesn't Grandma visit anymore? What am I supposed to tell her? Tell her the truth. Tell her Mommy and Daddy made some very bad choices, and now they have to face the consequences. You're unbelievable. Jessica's voice went hard. After everything we've done for you, letting you be part of Emma's life, giving you a purpose after Dad died, and this is how you repay us? I almost laughed. Almost. What exactly have you done for me, Jessica? Name one thing. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I let you babysit Emma. That's not doing something for me. That's using me for free childcare. I called you. I kept in touch. Most people our age don't even talk to their parents anymore. You called me when you needed money, or babysitting, or help cleaning your garage. When was the last time you called just to see how I was doing? Silence. That's what I thought. Derek slammed his hand against the doorframe, hard enough to make me jump. This is insane. You're throwing away your entire family over some stupid credit cards. No, Derek. You threw away your family when you committed fraud against me. I'm just responding to what you did. You'll never see Emma again. Jessica's voice was cold now, all pretense of tears gone. I'll get a restraining order. I'll tell the court you're unstable. You'll never see your granddaughter again as long as you live. I'd been waiting for this. The nuclear option. The one card they thought would break me. Jessica, I'm currently recording this conversation. My doorbell camera has audio. Everything you've said, the threats, the admission that you knew about the credit cards, using Emma as leverage, it's all on tape. Their faces went white. Both of them. That's you can't, Derek sputtered. I can. And I have. And if you don't leave my property right now, I'm calling 911. Derek's face twisted into something ugly. Leave. Now. He stood there for a second, breathing hard. I could see him calculating what would happen if he pushed through that chain lock, what would happen if the police showed up, what would happen if he made this worse. Then Jessica grabbed his arm. Derek, let's go. She turned and walked down the steps. Derek followed, but not before turning back to look at me with pure hatred in his eyes. You're going to regret this, he said. You have no idea what you've started. Then they were gone. The truck backed out of my driveway. The taillights disappeared around the corner. I closed the door, locked it, put my back against it and slid down to the floor. And I cried, not because I was scared, not because I regretted what I'd done. I cried because I finally understood that the daughter I raised was gone. Maybe she'd never existed. Maybe I'd been loving a fantasy for 32 years while the real Jessica was someone I didn't know at all. I sat on that floor for a long time. The next morning, I called Patricia. I have footage, I told her, from my doorbell camera. They threatened me. They admitted to knowing about the credit cards. They said they'd take Emma away if I didn't drop the charges. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Then, Margaret, do you understand what you just gave me? Evidence? More than that. Witness intimidation, threatening a victim in Ohio, that's a separate felony. And using a child as leverage in a criminal case, the prosecutor is going to love this. Love this. Those two words felt strange, but also right. What do I do now? You file for a restraining order. Today. Based on what happened last night, any judge in Cuyahoga County will grant it. And you send me that footage immediately. I was at the courthouse by 10 a.m. The paperwork took about an hour. I had to write out everything that happened, the phone calls, the doorstep confrontation, the threats. A clerk told me a judge would review it that afternoon. By 4 p.m., I had a temporary restraining order. Jessica and Derek were prohibited from coming within 500 feet of me or my property. If they violated it, they'd be arrested on the spot. The process server delivered it to their house the next morning. I know because Derek called me screaming about it 30 seconds later. I didn't answer. Just saved the voicemail. 3 more calls that day. 2 from Jessica, 1 from Derek. All went to voicemail. All saved. Then the letters started. The first one came a week later. Emma's handwriting on the envelope. My name spelled out in careful, wobbly letters. Inside was a piece of notebook paper with a crayon drawing. 2 figures holding hands under a rainbow. One big, one small. Grandma and Emma written underneath. And a message, "Dear Grandma, why don't you visit anymore? I miss you. Mommy says you're mad at us, but I don't know why. Can you please come back? I love you. Emma." I held that letter in my hands and felt something crack inside me. They were using her, a 7-year-old child, teaching her to write emotional pleas designed to manipulate her own grandmother. You know what the worst part was? It almost worked. I actually picked up my phone to call Jessica. I actually started dialing. Then I remembered Derek's face on my porch, the hatred in his eyes, the threat in his voice. I put the phone down. I photographed the letter. I sent it to Patricia. "Document everything," she said. "This is part of a pattern. The prosecutor needs to see this." Over the next few weeks, more letters came. Some from Emma, all with that same coached, heartbreaking tone. Some from Jessica, apologies that never actually apologized, offers to work things out that never acknowledged what she'd done. One from Derek, a formal-sounding promise to pay back the credit card debt if I dropped the charges. Flowers arrived on my birthday. No card, but I knew who sent them. Photos showed up in my mailbox, pictures from Emma's birthday party last year, with a note saying, "She asked why you weren't there this time." It was a campaign. Calculated, relentless, designed to break me down. I started going to a support group at the senior center, elder abuse survivors. There were 6 of us, meeting every Wednesday night in a community room that smelled like coffee and sadness. A woman named Diane became my closest ally. She'd been through something similar. Her son had cleaned out her bank account while she was recovering from surgery. Took everything she had. She'd pressed charges too. "The hardest part isn't the legal stuff," she told me one night. "It's the people who tell you that you should have just let it go. That family is family. That blood is thicker than water. What do you say to them?" She smiled, cold, satisfied. "I say blood doesn't give you the right to steal. And I'd rather be alone than be used." I carried those words with me. 4 months of preparation, depositions, evidence review, witness interviews. Patricia and Miss Chen worked together like they'd been doing this their whole lives. The charges were finalized: identity theft, credit card fraud, bank fraud, and using false identification documents. Derek faced additional charges for the driver's license incident. Both of them were looking at serious prison time. Their attorney tried to negotiate plea deals, reduced charges, community service. Miss Chen wasn't interested. "The victim isn't willing to accept a plea," she told them. "We're going to trial." The night before jury selection, I sat in my living room looking at all the evidence I'd collected: bank statements, credit reports, photographs, letters from a granddaughter being used as a weapon, voicemails filled with threats and fake apologies. 7 years of being exploited. $27,000 in fraud, $63,000 in gifts that were never gifts at all. Tomorrow, it all went public. Tomorrow, everyone would know what my daughter really was. I should have felt nervous, scared, something. Instead, I felt calm, ready. They'd spent months trying to break me, threatening me, manipulating me, using my granddaughter against me. They had no idea what was coming. Sunday afternoon, 2:17 p.m. I was kneeling in my front garden, planting tulip bulbs, when I heard the car. You know that sound when you recognize an engine before you even look up? My whole body went rigid. I turned around slowly, dirt still on my hands. Derek's truck was parked across the street, and all 3 of them were walking toward my fence. Jessica was carrying a cake box. Derek had his hands in his pockets, trying to look casual, and between them, holding a handmade card, was Emma, my granddaughter, 7 years old, being used as a weapon. The restraining order said 500 feet. They were standing on the public sidewalk, technically just outside my property line. Their attorney had probably coached them on exactly where to stand. Smart. And disgusting. I stood up slowly. Didn't say anything. Just watch them approach the fence. Jessica spoke first. Her voice was soft, rehearsed. Mom, please don't walk away. We just want to talk. We've been going to therapy, both of us. We've been working on ourselves. And we finally understand what we did wrong. I didn't respond. Just stood there with my gardening gloves on, tulip bulbs at my feet. Derek cleared his throat. Margaret, I know I said some things I shouldn't have. I was scared, desperate, but I've had time to think, and you were right. We took advantage of you. We took you for granted, and we're sorry. Sorry. The word hung there like a bad smell. We brought you a cake, Jessica added, holding up the box. Red velvet. Your favorite. Remember how you used to make it for my birthday every year? I remembered. I remembered everything. Every birthday cake, every school play, every dollar I'd given them, every hour I'd spent taking care of their child while they were out spending money they didn't have. Then Emma stepped forward. She was wearing her pink dress, the one I'd bought her last Easter. She held up the handmade card. Grandma, I made this for you. It's a picture of us feeding the ducks. Remember when we did that? At the park? Her voice cracked. She wasn't acting. This was real emotion, manipulated by adults who should have known better. Can you please come back? I miss you. Mommy and Daddy said if I asked really nicely, maybe you'd come to dinner with us. We're having pot roast, your favorite. I walked to the fence. My legs felt heavy. My chest felt tight. Emma's eyes were so hopeful, so innocent. She had no idea what her parents had done. No idea why Grandma wasn't around anymore. All she knew was that the adults in her life were fighting, and she was caught in the middle. I reached over the fence and took the card from her small hands. Thank you, sweetheart. I love it. Her face lit up. Does that mean you'll come to dinner? Behind her, Jessica was watching me with that calculated look. Derek had his arms crossed, waiting. This was the test. They knew it. I knew it. Every instinct I had as a grandmother screamed at me to say yes, to hug Emma, to pretend the last few months hadn't happened, to go back to being the available, reliable, exploitable grandmother they could count on to never say no. But I wasn't that woman anymore. Emma, I love you very much, more than you'll ever know. My voice was thick. But I can't come to dinner. Not right now. Her face crumpled. Why not? Because there are some things between adults that need to get sorted out first. It's not your fault. None of this is your fault. But I can't come to dinner. But Mommy said, I know what Mommy said. I looked up at Jessica. And I'm saying no. Jessica's mask started to slip. Mom, come on. We're trying here. We're meeting you halfway. All we're asking is one dinner, one chance to show you we're serious about making things right. No. What do you mean, no? We brought Emma. We brought cake. We apologized. What more do you want? I want you to face the consequences of what you did. Derek stepped forward. His voice dropped low. Dangerous. I told you I'm prepared to plead guilty. For Emma's sake. To keep this family together. But you have to meet us halfway, Margaret. Drop the charges. Let us work this out privately. I looked at him. Really looked. At the man who'd stolen my identity, walked into a bank with my driver's license, opened credit cards in my name, and then threatened me when I found out. This is theater, Derek. Excuse me? This whole thing. The cake, the apology, using Emma to soften me up. It's all a performance, and I'm not buying it. Jessica's eyes went hard. You're unbelievable. We're standing here, humbling ourselves, and you're not humbling yourselves. You're trying to manipulate me. Again. Just like you've been doing for 7 years. That's not fair. Really? When was the last time you apologized to me without wanting something in return? When was the last time you called just to see how I was doing? When was the last time you gave me anything instead of taking? Silence. That's what I thought. Emma was crying now. Quiet tears rolling down her cheeks. It broke my heart. But I couldn't back down. Not this time. Derek's controlled calm finally cracked. You know what? Fine. You want to play hardball? Let's play hardball. You think you're going to win in court? Our lawyer says your case is weak. You're an old woman with a grudge. The jury's going to see right through you. Then I guess we'll find out. You're destroying this family. No, Derek, you destroyed this family when you committed fraud against me. I'm just responding to what you did. He stepped closer to the fence. Close enough that I could smell his cologne. Close enough that I could see the hatred in his eyes. You're going to regret this. I promise you that. Is that another threat? Because I'm still recording everything. He froze. Looked around. Saw the doorbell camera. Realized his mistake. Let's go, he said to Jessica. She's not worth it. Jessica grabbed his arm. Derek, I said, let's go. He turned and started walking back to the truck. Jessica hesitated, then followed, pulling Emma along with her. But Derek wasn't done. He stopped at the curb, turned back to face me, and spit on the sidewalk. Deliberate, disgusting. The real Derek, finally showing himself. You'll see, he said. You'll all see. Then they were gone. Emma's face pressed against the back window as the truck pulled away, her hand raised in a small wave. I stood at that fence for a long time. The cake box was still sitting on the sidewalk where Jessica had left it. Red velvet, my favorite. I walked over, picked it up, and threw it in the trash. Some people might say that was petty. Some people might say I should have taken it inside, eaten a slice, tried to hold on to some scrap of the family I used to have. But here's the thing about people who hurt you and then bring you cake. The cake isn't an apology. It's a bribe. And I was done being bribed. The weeks before the trial were the hardest of my life. I wasn't sleeping. Maybe 4 hours a night, if I was lucky. My appetite was gone. I'd lost 12 pounds since this whole thing started. My hands shook when I tried to hold a coffee cup. Patricia noticed. So did Diane from my support group. You need to take care of yourself, Patricia told me. This is a marathon, not a sprint. If you collapse before the trial, they win. She was right. I knew she was right. But knowing something and doing something about it are two different things. The prosecution's case was solid. Miss Chen walked me through it during our preparation sessions. The IP addresses, the bank footage, the credit card applications with my social security number, the doorbell camera footage of Derek's threats, the letters they'd sent trying to manipulate me. Their lawyer is going to try to paint you as confused, she warned me. They'll say you gave them permission to use your credit. They'll say you're vindictive. They'll say you're trying to punish them for the live your own life comment. What do? You tell the truth. Clearly. Calmly. Don't get emotional. Don't let them rattle you. The evidence speaks for itself. The evidence. I'd spent months collecting it. Bank statements, credit reports, recorded confrontations, coach letters from my granddaughter. Every piece of it told the same story. I'd been exploited by the people I loved most. 3 days before the trial, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Handwritten. It was from Derek's mother. A woman I'd met exactly twice. Once at the wedding, once at Emma's christening. Her name was Carol. Dear Margaret, she wrote, I know we don't know each other well, but I felt I needed to write to you. Derek is my son, and I love him. But he has always had problems with entitlement, with thinking the world owes him something. I've watched him take advantage of people his whole life, friends, employers, and now you. What he did to you was wrong, and I'm sorry I didn't raise him better. Whatever happens in court, I want you to know that I believe you, and I'm praying for you. I read that letter 3 times. Then I cried for an hour. An ally, from the most unexpected place, I wrote back that night. Told her I appreciated her honesty. Told her I didn't blame her for what Derek did. Told her I hoped somehow we could find a way to make sure Emma didn't get lost in all of this. Carol wrote back 2 days later. Said she'd like that. Said Emma was welcome at her house anytime. said she was willing to testify as a character witness if the prosecutor thought it would help. Patricia almost fell out of her chair when I showed her the letters. Derek's own mother is willing to testify against him? She's not testifying against him exactly. She's testifying to his character, his history of taking advantage of people. Patricia shook her head. This could be significant. Let me talk to Miss Chen. The night before the trial, I sat in my living room with all my evidence spread out on the coffee table. 7 years of exploitation documented in excruciating detail. $63,000 in cash. 7,000 hours of unpaid labor. $27,000 in fraudulent credit card debt, threats, manipulation. A granddaughter used as a weapon. And tomorrow, it all went in front of a jury. I thought about Robert, my husband, the practical veteran who believed in fairness and keeping your word. He'd been gone 5 years now, but I could still hear his voice in my head. You did the right thing, Maggie. You stood up for yourself. Whatever happens tomorrow, you did the right thing. I hoped he was right. The alarm went off at 5:30 a.m. I showered, dressed in my best navy suit, and ate a breakfast I couldn't taste. Patricia picked me up at 7:15. The courthouse was downtown, about 20 minutes away. We didn't talk much during the drive. There wasn't much left to say. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Fluorescent lights, wood paneling, an American flag behind the judge's bench. Miss Chen was already there, organizing her files. She looked up when we walked in and gave me a small nod. At 8:45, the defendants arrived. Jessica and Derek walked in with their attorney, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit. Jessica was wearing a conservative dress, her hair pulled back. She looked smaller, somehow, more fragile. She glanced at me across the courtroom. For a second, just a second, she looked like my little girl again, the one who used to climb into my lap and ask for stories. Then she looked away. Derek didn't look at me at all. Just sat down next to his lawyer and stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. At 9 a.m. sharp, the bailiff called for everyone to rise. Judge Catherine Morrison entered. A woman in her 60s, with gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. The court will come to order. The People versus Jessica Mitchell and Derek Mitchell. Charges include identity theft, credit card fraud, bank fraud, and use of false identification documents. How do the defendants plead? Their attorney stood. Not guilty, Your Honor. Not guilty. After everything, after the evidence, after the footage, after the letters, they were going to fight it. I looked at Patricia. She squeezed my hand under the table. The judge shuffled some papers. Very well, jury selection will begin immediately. Let's proceed. I took a deep breath, steadied my hands, reminded myself why I was here. 7 years of being used, $90,000 stolen, a lifetime of trust destroyed. Today, it all came out. Every lie, every manipulation, every dollar, and they had no idea what Miss Chen had prepared for them. Derek took the stand on day 3 of the trial, and that's when everything fell apart for him. You know that feeling when you watch someone dig their own grave, one shovel at a time? That's what it was like sitting in that courtroom, watching my son-in-law try to lie his way out of evidence that was literally on video. Miss Chen let him talk first, let him spin his story about how it was all a misunderstanding, how I'd given them verbal permission to use my credit, how the credit cards were supposed to be temporary just until they got back on their feet. He was good. I'll give him that. Smooth, sympathetic. The kind of guy who could sell you a broken car and make you feel lucky to have it. Then Miss Chen started her cross-examination. Mr. Mitchell, you testified that Mrs. Crawford gave you permission to open credit cards in her name. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. And you testified that she was aware of these accounts? Absolutely. We discussed it multiple times. I see. Miss Chen picked up a document from her table. Mr. Mitchell, how much money would you say Mrs. Crawford has given you and your wife over the years? In total? Derek shifted in his seat. I don't know exactly. Maybe 10 or 15,000? Miss Chen nodded slowly. Then she walked to the projector and put up a spreadsheet. Bank records. 7 years of transfers, all highlighted in yellow. This is a summary of every documented transfer from Mrs. Crawford to accounts held by you or your wife. The total comes to $63,422. The courtroom went quiet. 63,000, Miss Chen repeated. You misspoke by $48,000, Mr. Mitchell. That's quite a discrepancy. Derek's face went red. I said I didn't know exactly. I was estimating. You were estimating, under oath, about money you received from a 71-year-old widow. Miss Chen let that hang in the air. Let's talk about what that money was supposedly for. She clicked to the next slide. Credit card statements. These are the charges on the first fraudulent account, the one with the $8,400 balance. She pointed at a highlighted line. This charge here, $499. PlayStation 5 gaming console. Purchased November 2022. Derek's lawyer stood up. Objection. Relevance. Your Honor, the defendant claimed these credit cards were opened for family emergencies. I'm establishing what actually constitutes an emergency in the defendant's mind. Judge Morrison nodded. I'll allow it. Continue. Miss Chen turned back to Derek. Mr. Mitchell, does a PlayStation 5 constitute a family emergency? He didn't answer. Just sat there, jaw clenched. What about these charges? She clicked through more slides. $312 at Dave & Buster's. $247 at a steakhouse downtown. $890 in concert tickets. $415 at a sporting goods store. Each slide was another nail in his coffin. I watched the jury's faces. They weren't sympathetic anymore. They were angry. Mr. Mitchell, you testified that Mrs. Crawford gave you verbal permission to open these accounts. If that's true, why did you use her driver's license to verify the accounts at the bank? Why not just have her come in herself? She was busy. She asked me to handle it. She asked you to impersonate her at a financial institution? That's not I didn't impersonate. We have security footage, Mr. Mitchell. Miss Chen clicked to the next slide. There he was, clear as day, standing at the bank counter with my driver's license in his hand. You presented her identification documents as your own. That's the legal definition of using false identification, a federal crime. Derek's composure finally cracked. This is insane. He turned to the jury. She's my mother-in-law. She helped us out for years. And now she's doing this because she's bitter and lonely and can't handle that her daughter grew up and doesn't need her anymore. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. Mr. Mitchell, you will address the court, not the jury. But the damage was done. Everyone in that room saw what Derek really was. Not a desperate family man who made a mistake. A manipulator who'd been caught and was lashing out. Miss Chen smiled. Cold. Professional. No further questions, Your Honor. Jessica testified next. Her strategy was different tears, apologies, playing the victim of her controlling husband. She claimed Derek had pressured her into it, said she didn't know the full extent of what he was doing. But Miss Chen had the IP address logs. The credit card applications had been submitted from their home computer during the day. When Derek was at work, when only Jessica was home, the look on Jessica's face when that evidence came up, I'll never forget it, like a mask crumbling in slow motion. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. I sat in the hallway with Patricia, not talking, just waiting. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. When the bailiff called us back in, I knew. Something in the air had changed. The jury foreman stood up. Middle-aged woman. Glasses. She looked directly at Derek and Jessica when she spoke. On the charge of identity theft, we find the defendants guilty. On the charge of credit card fraud, we find the defendants guilty. On the charge of bank fraud, we find the defendants guilty. On the charge of using false identification documents, we find the defendant Derek Mitchell guilty. 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 Jessica started crying. Derek just stared straight ahead, jaw tight, like he still couldn't believe this was happening. Sentencing was 2 weeks later. I almost didn't go. Patricia said I didn't have to, but I needed to see it through. Needed to hear the judge say the words. Judge Morrison didn't hold back. Elder financial abuse within families is one of the most insidious forms of exploitation that exists in our society. The victims trust their abusers. They love their abusers. And that trust and love is weaponized against them. She looked at Jessica and Derek. Mrs. Crawford spent 7 years supporting your family. She gave you money when you asked. She gave you time when you demanded it. She helped raise your daughter, and you repaid her with theft, fraud, and manipulation. When she discovered what you'd done, you threatened her. You used her granddaughter as an emotional weapon. You showed no remorse and no accountability. Derek's lawyer tried to interject something about mitigating circumstances. Judge Morrison cut him off. Derek Mitchell, I sentence you to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. Jessica Mitchell, I sentence you to 12 months of house arrest, followed by community service. Both defendants are ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $82,000, $63,000 for documented financial exploitation, $14,000 for fraudulent credit card debt, and $5,000 for credit repair costs. $82,000, 13 years of payments at $500 a month. They'd be paying me back until they were in their 50s. Derek was led away in handcuffs. He didn't look at me. Didn't look at anyone. Just walked out like a man who'd finally run out of lies. Jessica turned to me as she was leaving, mascara running down her face. For a second, I saw my daughter again. The little girl who used to ask me to read her bedtime stories. I hope you're happy, she said. We're going to lose everything. I wanted you not to steal from me, I told her. Everything else is consequence. You're a heartless. I'm a woman who finally learned to protect herself. Goodbye, Jessica. The aftermath was brutal. For them, Derek's employer terminated him the day of his conviction. Their house went into foreclosure within 3 months. Jessica had to move in with Carol, Derek's mother, in a trailer park on the east side of Cleveland. The woman who'd told me to live my own life was now living in a double wide with her mother-in-law, working a call center job for $14 an hour. Some people might say that's harsh. Some people might feel sorry for her. I don't. Derek spent 13 months in a minimum security federal facility. Carol told me he had trouble with other inmates, anger issues. Couldn't keep his mouth shut. Got into multiple altercations. When he got out, the only job he could find was at a car wash, $11 an hour. His wages are garnished for restitution payments, $500 a month straight to me, every single month. I get a deposit in my account, and every single month, I think about that PlayStation 5 he bought with my credit. You reap what you sow. But here's the part that surprised me. The part I didn't expect. 6 months after the trial, I got a call from Carol, Derek's mother. She wanted to talk about Emma. She's struggling, Carol said. Jessica tells her you don't love them anymore. She's confused and sad and acting out at school. I'm doing what I can, but I'm 74 years old. I can't give her what she needs. What are you asking? Supervised visits. At my place. Jessica won't know. Derek definitely won't know. But Emma needs her grandmother. I thought about it for 3 days. Talked to Patricia. Talked to Diane from my support group. In the end, I said yes. The first visit was awkward. Emma was shy at first, hiding behind Carol's legs. But within an hour, she was sitting in my lap, showing me her drawings, telling me about school. Mommy says you don't love us anymore, she said quietly. But I don't believe her. I held her tight. I love you more than anything in the world, sweetheart. That's never going to change. We planted tulip bulbs in Carol's little garden that day. Emma picked yellow ones because they're her favorite color. She named each bulb and made me promise we'd come back in the spring to see them bloom. That was the first visit. There have been many more since then. 1 year later, and my life looks nothing like it did before. My credit is repaired. I have a living trust set up so no one can ever exploit me again. I volunteer at a legal aid clinic 3 days a week, helping other seniors navigate the system when their families turn on them. The support group at the senior center became my real family. Diane and I took a weekend trip to Nashville last spring. We're planning a week in New Mexico this fall. And there's Howard, 73 years old, retired engineer. We met at a book club. We both love mystery novels. He makes me laugh. He respects my boundaries. He never asks for anything except my company. Robert would like him, I think. Jessica calls sometimes, usually when she needs something. I don't answer. I let it go to voicemail, listen to whatever guilt trip she's prepared, and delete it. She's my daughter. I'll always love her in some distant, complicated way, but I don't have to let her back into my life. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's self-destruction. And I'm done destroying myself for people who don't appreciate it. Last week, Emma and I planted more bulbs in Carol's garden. She's 8 now, taller, more confident. She understands more than she lets on. "Grandma," she said, patting dirt around a bulb, "are you still mad at Mommy?" "I'm not mad, sweetheart. I'm just protecting myself." "What's the difference?" I thought about that for a moment. Mad is when you want to hurt someone back. Protecting yourself is when you just don't want to be hurt anymore. She nodded seriously, like that made perfect sense. "I think that's smart," she said. "Can we get ice cream after this?" We got ice cream, 2 scoops. Chocolate for her, strawberry for me. We sat on a bench outside the shop and watched the cars go by. And for a few minutes, everything felt simple and good. That's my life now. Simple and good. Not perfect, never perfect, but mine. Earned, protected. 7 years ago, I was an ATM with no withdrawal limit. A free babysitter. A doormat who kept saying yes to people who only knew how to take. Today, I'm a woman who knows her worth. A woman who keeps receipts. A woman who learned the hardest lesson there is. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you are the ones who hurt you most. And sometimes, the only way to survive is to walk away. Jessica told me to live my own life. Worst thing she ever said to me, best advice I ever took. If you stayed for this whole story, I appreciate you. Really. Hit subscribe if you want more stories like this one, because I've got plenty more to tell. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's self-destruction. And karma always collects.